So I think that 2022 has really been a year of exposing toxic femininity to the world, right? Because a lot of it wasn't as much exposed under more of a patriarchal system, but the black community has been more of a matriarchal system and a gynocracy for a long time. But with the SJWs and the Twitter community, this hyper-leftist culture, something that we got to understand is that there is a lot of toxic femininity that gets pushed off as wounded femininity and a hyper victim mentality and victim complex. Now, I've been keeping up with this Tory Lanez case, this Meg Thee Stallion case for a minute now, and I don't know all the details. Everything is so convoluted with this case. But one thing that you'll notice is this. When it comes to this particular case, and this is also something that took place with the Amber Heard situation and Johnny Depp, is that there's this movement of believe all women. There's this movement of no victim blaming and believe all victims and whatnot. Some of it's bullshit. I'm going to keep it a complete buck with you. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Now, my take on what happened in this situation from what I've been hearing within the trials is that Kylie, that Tory, Meg, Kelsey, they went to the party. EJ was there. That was Meg's stylist. They went to Kylie Jenner's party. It's already kind of common knowledge that Meg Thee Stallion, she get wild off that liquor, right? Now, one thing that I'll say is that somebody gets shot, they got shot. Like, that's not a matter of, oh, they got shot, that's their fault they got shot. No, I'm not going to say that. Now, I can understand that if you are a 4'11 woman and you're getting in a fight with a 5'10 woman who's very stacked, that all that size kind of works like her body is a human weapon. So I can see how a woman in that situation may want to bust off some shots. I'm going to just keep it a bug with you on that, right? But what I hear about the situation and what makes sense to me from the narrative of what I've gotten between Kelsey, EJ, taking certain things out of Meg's point of view, taking certain things out the point of view of, and I didn't really even listen to too much of Tory's point of view. I listened to pretty much what everyone else said. And then there's some different things that took place. So it looks like Tory, Meg, and Kelsey, they went to Kylie Jenner's party. Right? When they went to Kylie Jenner's party, this is after Meg was booed up with Tory Lanez as her quarantine buddy, right? That's who she was spending a lot of time fucking with through quarantine, right? A couple years back. And during this time, I think EJ said he dropped Meg off at Tory Lanez's house on like 10 plus occasions. And a lot of people are saying, well, why does it matter if she lied about sleeping with Tory Lanez? Why does it matter if she lied about getting into a fight with Kelsey? I think the reason why it matters is because it gives motive to the shooting. It gives motive to the shooting, right? So they went to the party. I think EJ said he's seen about 6 to 7 bottles that were empty between 6 to 8 people. EJ doesn't really drink, guys. Something I heard, right? And this is allegedly, everything I'm saying is allegedly, right? And then during this time, Tory Lanez was hot in the ass, of course. So he was trying to smash on Kylie. When he was trying to smash on Kylie, Meg Thee Stallion got jealous. As she got jealous. Inside? Mm-hmm. And while she started popping off at Kylie, saying she thought she was lame and stuff like that, people in their group could tell that things were about to get out of hand. I don't think Kylie really shot back at Meg, but things were getting a little bit out of hand. So Corey Gamble was like, hey, listen, it might be about time for y'all to go, right? And they was like, all right, cool, let's get up out of here before things escalate. But the liquor already got in her, right? And then you hear the story from, you hear Moneybagg Yo say, she a gangster when she get off the liquor. And she's like, what the fuck that's supposed to mean, right? I think she knew what that was supposed to mean. So as the situation went forward, they left, but they were still drunk. I think Kelsey got really drunk herself and she kind of passed out, went to one of the guest rooms, but then it was time for them to leave. As it was time for them to leave, I think Tory Lanez was in his boxers, right? Stay at a pool party. Meg, she was barefoot. And when they left, they had the bag. And I think EJ said he never saw a gun on Tory. He never saw a gun on anyone else, but he saw something that looked like a gun inside of one of the bags for Meg, and Kelsey was her assistant. So Kelsey was the one who probably packed the bag. She was probably the only person who knew where the gun was, or the fact that there was a gun there altogether, right? So perhaps she was the only one who knew there was a gun there altogether, right? So after they left, it seems that Meg was trying to throw shots and trying to rile up Tory, and she said something about Tory only being popping because he did a feature with Jack Harlow. I didn't even know Jack Harlow was popping back a couple years ago. I think I found out about him last year. But after this situation started moving forward, when she started talking trash to Tory put her on blast for going behind Kelsey's back and sleeping with men that she introduced her to, right? So it looks like Kelsey started to have a crush on Tory, and I don't know if she was really mad about the situation with Kylie, but when Meg started talking a bunch of trash towards Tory put her on blast, and then that ended up turning into a fight between Kelsey and Meg. So also I was listening to what the witness said as well about how a big argument ensued, and some of that was a little bit convoluted, and it does seem like there might have been a little bit of like racism and prejudice involved in the eyewitness testimony of what transpired. But a fight broke out. After the fight broke out, things got out of hand. The bag went from the trunk into the back seat, where it appears that Kelsey took the gun out after the fight. I believe there was some necklace that was messed up, some nails that broke up, a bald patch in her head. And after that took place, Kelsey, she tried to shoot at Meg, but she missed, and there was fragments in her foot, not actually the bullet itself. So it means that something may have ricocheted off or something like that took place. Or initially she said it was glass, right? And after there was something going on where initially said it was glass situation, of course it had already gone left. The bodyguard, I believe his name was Quinn, I'm not completely sure. And then there was Tory, tried to break the situation up. After trying to break the situation up, looks like he took the gun, he fired off the rest of the shots to empty out the clip. And I'm not sure completely why. Maybe he was just mad and he was getting belligerent because everybody was drunk as hell. But maybe he was firing off the rest of the shots so that no more shots could be fired, right? And then after that, there was, trying to violently break up the fight. And Meg was still mad. She was still belligerent. So she was, kicking all over the place. Apparently she tried to kick out the back window or something like that of the car when she was very drunk and shit like that. So after she got shot, she was like crawling. They put her back in the car. The police were called, so there was a big argument that ensued. Then after the argument ensued, the police came. Meg didn't say exactly what happened. Maybe she was just still mad at Tory for putting her on blast. And she wanted to protect her friend at the time, who actually was the one who shot her, Kelsey, allegedly. So after that situation took place, the police came, everybody got locked up. Right? Well, not everybody got locked up, but Tory got locked up. Everybody got put in cuffs, right? And after everybody got put in cuffs and that situation went the way it did, they didn't treat the situation as if Kelsey was the one who fired the weapon. So that the police did a very terrible job with tracking the situation that was going on. Like, the police did a terrible job. But afterwards, maybe Rock Nation talked to Megan about separating herself from some of the people in her circle. And there was also that situation about Tory getting rights to his masters. And then the movement was to cancel Tory Lanez, right? So after they tried to cancel Tory Lanez, and maybe some of that had to do with industry politics, because look at it from the perspective of what happened between Chris Brown and Rihanna as well, right? Like, that was a mutual fight. Rihanna's not a small girl, right? But they used this victim image to push her even further than she was, while putting down Chris Brown in the process. And all the women who have that sisterhood mentality, they aren't going to look further into the thing. And then all the simps, they're going to look at the situation and say, oh, Chris Brown is a woman beater, he's so bad, he's so wrong. When really is a fight that the woman started. So after this situation took place, seems that the method of marketing from the situation was to play on the believe all women, believe all victims, domestic violence situation. But Meg, caught up in the toxic femininity, wanted to protect her image more than anything else. So she lied about sleeping behind, Kelsey with the men that she had introduced Kelsey to. And that was part of what created the argument. See, that's why that line about sleeping with Tory Lanez is something that went very negatively against her, right? But it still doesn't seem like a thing of, like, it still doesn't justify her being shot, but it adds context and motive to the situation and what was going on. Now, it appears that Tory himself kept mostly quiet for it outside of his music, but he really wanted the situation to go away. Because whether it was his gun or not, he already had pending charges, I believe, if I'm correct. So he wanted to avoid being in all this issue and drama in the first place. And this is one thing that I'll say is, once a woman gets her mind made up about a certain situation, once she's decides she wants to protect her image, that she will use a man as a scapegoat. That's why I'm not a fan of this believe all women stuff, because a woman will use a man as a scapegoat. Now, I'll say this, just as much as people worry about Megan's, mental health, and just as much as people worry about all these different scenarios and how she feels and what's going on, you have to understand that by pushing these narratives, it could have, like, Tory Lanez is a father, right? He has a kid. Plus, he is a man who has people to take care of. So by tarnishing his reputation and defaming him in order to protect her image, she is possibly going to put this man, and I know it was the state that decided to prosecute him and the police didn't do their job well, but through this particular scenario, it was one of those situations where this man could have possibly spent the next 22 to 24 years behind bars over someone who just wanted to protect their character, to protect their name, to protect their, their image, which is some bullshit. But I do think there may have been some Rock Nation shit going on. I don't know, man. But that's what it looks like. But it seems like from what she was advised to do, I'm doing something right now. Here you go.
Appreciate you, man. What y'all?
Now, something else to understand with this particular scenario is that there was a lot of things going on with this that got very convoluted. Like Kelsey, she went and got immunity, or some form of immunity, maybe Alfred immunity, something like that, so that her testimony couldn't be used against her to put her behind bars in the context of this particular scenario. And that is some shit to really think about, right? But I think a lot of it was Meg was embarrassed for getting, exposed for not being that good of a friend. And she sabotaged some of her relationships and friendships along the way during this. And, she's talking about her own mental health, talking about how, she would rather he just killed her than this. Because it's not a matter of she just felt so wronged and had to go through so much. I think a lot of it was that the exposing of her lies could possibly ruin her life and her reputation. Right? And this is why it's so important to just tell the truth and to not just lie. Because as much as I don't think what happened is what she said happened, because there's so much he said, she said going on, a lot of this put a lot of black men versus black women against each other. It really did. And you can see it with the Twitter community. And even with the Amber Heard situation, there are still women who are going around saying, well, I think they both did something. I'm like, no, it's too late to say they both did something if you are the person who are going out of your way to benefit from defaming someone's character in order to get social power. See, that's what toxic femininity is. Toxic femininity is when you place the highest value on your assumed perception of innocence in a particular scenario, and you're willing to use social influence or social power to attack another individual who hurt that assumed perception of innocence. That's the foundation of toxic femininity, right? So as the situation is going forward, you see some women are still trying to take up for Amber Heard as much as they can. Don't trust that type of person who will place feelings over facts in every scenario, who will place feelings over common sense in any possible scenario. There's money loss. There's things that people experience that can negatively affect the men's mental health from these lies. Now, I don't know exactly what happened, but just using deductive reasoning skills, this appears to be what's taking place in this particular scenario. These are my thoughts on it. I think that after the situation went through, Meg got an even bigger boost of support. She still has a big amount of support. And I'll say this, like, I am a big time blurred, right? So I've also been a fan of that jiggly thing behind Meg Thee Stallion. I've also been a big fan of her support of like blurred culture and the different, cosplay things that she does. Because she's one of them sexy anime girls, them cosplay girls. I love them, right? But something to be completely honest about is that within the blurred culture, there is a heavy emphasis on hyper leftist leanings, right? Now, I'm somebody who does support different things. Like I support feminism, right? You probably wouldn't think that I support feminism as somebody who's like in the content creator space that's somewhat connected to the manosphere, talking about dating, relationships, and masculinity and femininity and dom-sub dynamics. And he probably wouldn't also think that I'm a supporter of the LGBT community. I am, right? See, something to understand about the blurred community is that the blurred community is typically for people who either were outcasts at some point in time or are trying to be chameleons within that culture because now it's popular. So it's like somewhat pandering towards a false sense of being different, right? And that makes the blurred community a safe haven, not only for people who were outcasts, but also for people who want to identify heavily with the idea of victimhood so that they can accrue social power and social influence, right? So these are just some things to understand. Like sometimes you'll see certain people in what I call the blurred connection, which are a lot of artists. Really, my favorite artists are really connected to the blurred connection, right? A lot of my favorite actors and comedians and singer-songwriters and producers, a whole bunch of things when it comes to the entertainment industry. And I like that. But I also understand that when it comes to these spaces, there are a lot of toxic women who have a very hyper victim mentality mindset, who are not going to be averse to false accusations or to having an odyssey of recollection. Watch my video on the odyssey of recollection. And things that also, then also there's a lot of flying monkeys. So I call them Uzarus, right? There's a lot of, simp men. A lot of men who will believe anything that a woman says because there are oftentimes going to be a lot of submissives who are looking for dominant women. And they feel like within this space, you're not really going to be judged for being a submissive man. And I see nothing wrong with a man being a submissive man. If that's the life he wants to live, that's how he wants to get down, there's nothing wrong with that. I actually support that when it comes to self-awareness over anything. But when the emphasis is more so on my truth rather than the facts or the truth, then oftentimes when we're in this feminine dominant society or this feminine dominant structure and ideologies and social narratives, something that can often occur is when feelings become more important than anything, and the psychological terms, phrases, and narratives that are shared is that if you invalidate an individual's feelings, then you're inherently toxic or you're inherently narcissistic. If someone feels that this is what the facts are and that's their truth, that's cool until it starts to extend into it being something that's untrue, that negatively affects the lifestyle, the safety, the mental health, and the ability to provide for oneself when it comes to other people. Anytime those consequences start to extend into a person's resources, or they start to extend into a person's safety, or start to extend into a person's social reputation, then what's important is the facts and not just what you feel. I think she's a good rapper. I enjoy some of her music, right? Although I do think a good bit of it is prostitution music. But hey, listen, rap has always been about being braggadocious. But the foundation of a lot of her bars and a lot of her music is on toxic femininity, right? So we got to understand that that's part of it, right? And then you think about shots fired, like I should have let them lock her ass up and all those other things, right? And you hear like Kelsey, and she came out with the Who Shot You, I believe, and all these different things taking place, that it seems that Tory Lanez wanted to protect Kelsey, although what happened? I think he apologized to her because he knew that when he exposed Meg Thee Stallion for how she was moving, that is what ultimately led to these things, snowballing and getting out of hand, right? That's ultimately what led to these things snowballing and getting out of hand. So when I'm looking at these scenarios, I think that some of what's going on looks pretty clear, but most of it is really murky. Most of it is some stuff that it just looks like a lot of messiness was going on, and you want to protect your image from that type of messiness going on. So the more I look at these scenarios, it just looks like it was just another Amber Heard type of scenario, right? Where there was some antagonism going on, things got out of hand, and as things got out of hand, there were advisors and things like that going on. They probably didn't expect for the police to get involved the way that they did, for these things to go to trial where more and more could come out. But the truth is this, we have to understand that there are so many black men right now who are in jail or in the graveyard because a woman wanted to lie to protect her assumed perception of innocence by any means necessary. And most of these scenarios where a woman lies on a man, even if she's found out to be lying, she is not going to take up accountability for it, right? Because toxic femininity is all about weaponizing victimhood. Toxic femininity is all about having zero accountability and being the victim in every scenario. And yes, getting shot does make her a victim. But there was a scapegoat. So many black men have been scapegoats for toxic femininity in so many scenarios. And you got to understand that once a woman makes up her mind that she's going to go down that route, if you contact her anymore, or if you try to rectify the situation, even if you weren't the one at fault and you're trying to take accountability for things that you didn't even do, that she will use that as further proof that you were the one who was in the wrong. Right? She'll use that as further proof that you were in the wrong. So sometimes you just have to shut up, back out the situation, ignore it, and leave it alone. Ignore it and leave it alone. And go ahead, immediately go to your lawyer, immediately go to protecting what it is that you've built. Because there are scenarios where you can and you will be a scapegoat to protect someone else's image, and the price you have to pay for that is something they don't care about. Now, Meg Thee Stallion, she got angry because she wants to stick to the lie no matter what. So in this particular scenario, you know, she started cutting people off and getting mad at people who started to support Tory Lanez. You know, she started getting unfollowed by people like Beyonce and other individuals. And this is just a really sad situation and how it went down. Now, I think there should be a certain level of justice for her getting shot, but it's hard for me to see that someone purposely tried to shoot her unless they had really bad aim with how close they were to one another, right? But at the end of the day, you know, justice should be served in this information. You know, I may be wrong about some of these things that I've asserted. I may be wrong about some of these things that I think may have happened. But to me, the narrative seems pretty clear. It just seems like it was a messy ass situation. So this is Coach Brodie on toxic femininity and my thoughts on the Meg Thee Stallion case. I'm out.